We now go across to Union Minister for Petroleum and Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, is joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to us, and wish you a very happy Independence Day.
Thank you very much. I warmly reciprocate that sentiment. I wish you, and through you, your viewers, a very happy Independence Day.
Mr. Puri, in fact, let me begin by asking you, the Prime Minister touched upon a number of issues, including Manipur, right at the top. The opposition has said that it is too little, too late. How do you respond to this?
You know, the opposition need to do some serious introspection. On the first day of the start of the session, the Honorable Home Minister wrote a letter to the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha saying that he is ready for a discussion on Manipur at any time of the Honorable Speaker's choice and as agreed to by the parties concerned. He repeated that. But the opposition did not want a discussion on Manipur. And therefore, on at least two occasions, when we from the government side spoke about Manipur, the opposition either did not participate in the debate but was running away. So it's a shoot and scoot politics that the opposition is indulging in. They keep saying Manipur, Manipur, you know, repeating it like, I should not say this, but little children. If they are serious about Manipur, they should have engaged in a discussion. And today, when the Honorable Prime Minister chose to address the nation and reassure the nation, reassure Manipur that the country is with the people of Manipur, they are saying too little and too late. After, I think, about 30 years, and one party got a majority all by itself in the 2014 election. We crossed 300. And let me tell you, in the same spirit in which the Prime Minister is exuding confidence, I can tell you our count in the Lok Sabha in 2024 will be at least 10% higher than our vote in the 2019 election in terms of number of seats.
So you're predicting 330 seats and more for the BJP?
Well, I'm saying at least 10% more. So we had 303 last time. That arithmetic-wise takes us to 330, yes.
And Mr. Puri, you put out a message yesterday about partition horrors, Remembrance Day, blaming the Congress leadership in 1947, and before that for some of the decisions taken. But here's something Jairam Ramesh said last year on the same occasion, that the real intent of the PM to commemorate this is to use historical events as fodder for current political battles. Is there any truth to this?
I think Mr. Jairam Ramesh has a history of making statements which tie him up in knots. I said in my tweet yesterday, fully recalling what Jairam Ramesh had said. But I was not referring to what Mr. Jairam Ramesh said 1 year ago. I was referring to what another person said. Why should we recall the horrors of the partition? This guy was saying is because he is, if I may use the word, just not politically mature enough. He said, why do you want to recall somewhere violence took place? Let's think of the nice things of life. Arey bhai, can you tell the Jews to forget the Holocaust? Can you tell the victims of the Pol Pot massacre in Cambodia to forget those things? Can you tell members of my community to forget what was done to them in 1984? I mean, it's an absurd thing. Now, Mr. Jairam Ramesh, who, by the way, I used to at one stage think of him as a very cerebral and this thing, but I think the part of him which wants to whitewash the Congress's actions is now more prominent. I mean, the fact of the matter is, there were people, including those who had sympathy to or were aligned with the Congress, who were opposing the partition. Look, where did the motivation for partition come from? It came essentially from the ruling colonial dispensation, because they had the arrogance to say that we ruled over India and after we leave, it is going to disintegrate into all number of pieces and into chaos. They were actually wishing that. I'm not saying they were saying. Many of them felt that Indians were not capable of governing themselves. And a lot of the people in the Congress party think that through that English education came this thing. There are some notable exceptions. I mean, Mr. Tharoor also speaks English in a very convoluted way. But he says that the devastation caused by the British during the 190 years is this thing. But today, one thing is clear, many of the Congress leaders were either in a hurry to accept the half-baked plans that the visiting Britishers in 1946 and earlier. Look, I was born 5 years after independence. So I think it's very, very politically appropriate that the Honorable Prime Minister said that we should remember the horrors of the partition so that future generation realize that we don't make the same mistakes again. Look, I'm a student of history and I've always maintained this is one of those events in history which should never have occurred.
Well, Mr. Puri, we are also heading into an election year. Now, was the Prime Minister's use of the word Rakshas to describe corruption deliberate? Was he responding to what the Congress said yesterday about BJP supporters and voters?
No, look, let me tell you. The Prime Minister identified three things which have literally had arrested our progress, and Bhrashtachar or corruption was top of the list. Therefore, when he used the word Rakshas, I think it is in some ways not vicious enough, because corruption not only leads to distortions, it leads to flawed decision making, it leads to the benefits of development not. And Rakshas, how would you translate that in English, whatever way? Demon. It's not a demon, it's much worse. So I think it's from my point of view, mild. Corruption is something on which we have, at least from 2014, zero tolerance. Earlier governments paid lip service to corruption, but they spoke with a forked tongue. They said one thing and did another thing. That's why you have an entire vocabulary of acronyms of corruption. 2G, CWG, I would also like to say CWC, but that would be a pun on the CWG. But coal, all kinds of this thing. Prime Minister also said, apart from entrenched corruption, Parivarvad. Why? It's not that there's no problem if you have a son or a daughter and he or she wants to join the profession you are in, journalism or law or politics. No problem. It is when decision making is subverted, and instead of thinking of the nation first, you think of the parivar or the dynasty's interest first. That is the distortion on that. And the third is appeasement. I mean, I said in the debate in Parliament in the Rajya Sabha, you know, it's made out as if the Aam Aadmi Party's bill, you know, the opposition to the bill in the Rajya Sabha on services in the Delhi government, where that is something that we have something against the Aam Aadmi Party. I mean, the Congress was supporting them. I reminded them that it was the Aam Aadmi Party, a new brand of shoot and scoot politics and a political startup, which actually targeted the then Congress government which was in power. Because we carried out those vigilante type of raids against foreign nationals, subjecting the ladies to cavity searches. Their urine samples were tested and found not to be contaminated or having drug this thing. This was in January of 2014. BJP was not even in power then. It was the Congress that was in power. So this Congress is a government appeasement. This is a very mild form of appeasement example I'm giving you. Appeasement in electoral politics, appeasement vis-a-vis a large country which is a neighboring country of ours. They were signing MOUs with them. Now they don't know where to look when evidence is coming in of large-scale funds being utilized on national security. On internal security, see what's happening. As the Prime Minister said earlier, when you went to a large gathering, you were worried about some bag lying somewhere. Dekh lena is bag mein kya hai? And explosions used to take place. Look at what is happening in J&K after 370. Today, all those pathrao, those stone-throwing gang, today tourism is at its peak. Number of flights there has grown enormously. The flags are being shown. The Tiranga is flying in Lal Chowk. This is the difference in the country.
Mr. Puri, let's talk about your ministry. Have we been able to reduce our dependence on Middle Eastern oil by buying large quantities of oil from Russia? You and the External Affairs Minister have defended this strongly, talking about the hypocrisy of the West in this regard as well. But what's the roadmap going forward to secure our energy future on this front, and what kind of a tightrope do we need to walk diplomatically to secure our interests?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I sometimes believe that in our celebratory mood on 15th August or 26th January, we sometimes tend to lose sight of the ground reality, that we have some hard decisions to take. Look, I'm very happy to inform you, with due modesty, I'm only one small cog in that big wheel. But the decisions the Honorable Prime Minister to buying more from United Arab Emirates, to buying more from the United States. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, our imports from Russia have come down by about 300,000 barrels, 285, 300,000 barrels a day. Look, the ground reality is that the Prime Minister has made it very clear that we owe a moral duty to our citizen, our consumer. So we will buy from wherever we can. We will buy, if you have some, somebody who has a a refinery, or he has a some energy in his or her backyard, we will, if it's at competitive prices, and we buy through tenders. So what has happened is, when the military action between Russia and Ukraine took place, I'm talking about February of 2022, at that point of time, there was instability. We were not buying much from Russia. In fact, our total imports from Russia then was 0.2%. We suddenly started increasing, and Russia became a significant supplier. It is still a significant supplier, but those discounts which were available then are less now, plus others are selling at more competitive prices. And sometimes the imperative of proximity, the imperative of being next door in the Gulf helps us. So UAE is selling more oil to us, and we'll be happy to buy. We are now importing about $20 billion of energy per year from the United States. We would be happy to buy more from elsewhere. I'm confident that we will be able to navigate our way through the different challenges that come our way, and we are well on the way towards achieving energy security over, let's say, a few years' time.
Right. Mr. Puri, what will we be telling some of our economic partners about this in the upcoming G20 summit? How do we ensure that we are not hamstrung and that we are able to negotiate agreements or deals on our terms?
I'm not particularly worried. You're asking a general question on how it will front out. You see, I'll tell you something. There are producers of energy, and I'm talking about making a general statement. Those who extract crude oil, there is a market out there. There are consumers. The consumers will want to buy. I think at the end of the day, you get an equilibrium. Insofar as political issues which inform technical questions, well, those are drafting issues. But let me say that I have full confidence in the drafting abilities of my friends, both Amitabh and Dr. Jaishankar and all the others, and we have a very fine team. I think going ahead, I'm looking, not only it has been a spectacular G20 year of celebration, but the summit level meeting a few weeks from now will be equally successful.
All right, sir. Wishing you all the best for the G20 summit, and thanks so much for speaking to us here on Times Now.